Picture this, two Hollywood legends lighting up the screen as father and son-in-law, delivering laughs that defined a generation, but off-camera, one harbored a burning hatred for the other that simmered for years, until the explosive truth finally burst out, leaving fans stunned. All in the Family hit TV screens back in 1971, and man, it was a game-changer. Created by Norman Lear, it tackled hot-button issues like racism, politics, and family clashes head-on, something no sitcom had dared before. Carroll O'Connor stepped into the role of Archie Bunker, this gruff, bigoted working-class guy from Queens, and he nailed it so well that people still quote his lines today. Rob Reiner played Michael Stivic, Archie's liberal son-in-law nicknamed Meathead, always sparring with him over Vietnam, women's rights, and everything in between. Their chemistry seemed electric, drawing millions of viewers each week and earning the show top ratings for years. But what most fans didn't know was the tension brewing behind those heated arguments. Carroll grew up in a tough New York neighborhood, served in the Navy during World War II, and fought his way into acting with sheer grit. He studied at the University of Montana and later in Dublin, honing his craft in theater before landing TV roles. By the time All in the Family came around, he was in his late 40s, bringing real depth to Archie, making him more than just a cartoon villain. Rob, on the other hand, was Hollywood royalty, son of comedy genius Carl Reiner, who created The Dick Van Dyke Show. Growing up around stars like Sid Caesar and Mel Brooks, Rob had doors open for him early, but he worked hard to prove himself beyond being a nepo kid. He started with small parts, but landing Meathead catapulted him to fame at just 23. The show wasn't just entertainment, it mirrored America's divides in the 70s, with Watergate, civil rights, and the counterculture raging outside. Episodes like the one where Archie deals with a gay friend or debates abortion pushed boundaries, sparking real conversations in living rooms everywhere. Carroll insisted on scripts that showed Archie's humanity, not just his flaws, to avoid making him a total monster. Rob brought his own fire, drawing from his progressive upbringing to make Meathead's rants feel authentic. They ad-libbed a lot, like in that famous scene where Archie explains his prejudices stemmed from his harsh childhood, pure improv that hit hard. But as seasons rolled on, whispers started about clashes on set, with Carroll feeling Rob overstepped. Norman Lear handpicked the cast, seeing potential in their real-life contrasts. Jean Stapleton as Edith and Sally Struthers as Gloria rounded out the family, adding heart to the chaos. The show won Emmys galore, including 4 for Carroll as lead actor, proving his portrayal was masterful. Yet, Rob's star rose too, leading him to direct films later like Stand By Me. Behind the accolades, Carroll harbored resentment. He saw Rob as entitled, always pushing his views, turning rehearsals into debates rather than collaborations. Friends on set recalled heated moments where Carroll would snap, feeling undermined by the younger actor's confidence. It wasn't just ego, it tied to their core beliefs about the show's message. All in the Family spawned spin-offs like Maude and the Jeffersons, expanding Lear's universe. Carroll became an advocate against bigotry, using Archie's character to highlight its absurdity. Rob, meanwhile, used his platform for activism, speaking out on liberal causes, which sometimes irked Carroll, who wanted the focus on artistry over politics. As the 70s turned to 80s, the show evolved into Archie Bunker's place, but Rob left after season 8, pursuing directing. Carroll stayed, but the dynamic shifted, and old grudges lingered. In interviews, Carroll downplayed their bond, calling Rob the boy dismissively, hinting at deeper issues. Rob's family life paralleled the show's themes: married to Penny Marshall briefly, then Michelle Singer, raising kids amid Hollywood pressures. Carroll faced personal tragedies, like his son Hugh's adoption and later struggles, which echoed the emotional depth he brought to Archie. These layers made their on-screen fights feel real, but off-screen, it was no act. Critics praised how the show exposed societal flaws through humor, but cast dynamics added irony. Carroll once said in a biography that working with Rob tested his patience like nothing else, fueling rumors. Fans speculated, but the full story stayed hidden for decades, buried under the show's legacy. The 90s saw reruns keep the show alive, introducing new generations to Archie and Meathead's battles. Carroll passed in 2001 from heart issues, and tributes poured in, but Rob's silence spoke volumes. No public eulogy, just quiet acknowledgement. This snub, some say, was the final straw in their unspoken war. Documentaries on the show glossed over tensions, focusing on triumphs. But insiders knew Carroll felt erased from Rob's success story, as Rob became an acclaimed director with hits like The Princess Bride. Their paths diverged, but the bitterness didn't fade, waiting for the right moment to surface. In recent years, with reboots and nostalgia, old tapes and interviews resurfaced. One clip from the 80s showed Carol venting about co-stars who thought they knew better, clearly aimed at Rob. It was subtle, but fans connected the dots, wondering about the real beef. The parallel with their son's tragedies added poignancy. Hugh O'Connor battled drugs and died by suicide in 1995, devastating Carol, who became an anti-drug crusader. Rob's son Nick faced similar demons, culminating in horror in 2025 when Nick allegedly killed Rob and his wife. This eerie echo exposed how life imitated art. Media frenzy after the murder dug up old feuds, with articles linking Carol's past disdain to these family curses. It seemed fate tied them beyond the screen, with addiction tearing both families apart. Carol had warned about such pains in his advocacy work, perhaps seeing shadows in Rob's life. To understand the hatred, look at their philosophies. Carol believed in nuanced characters, while Rob pushed bold statements. This clash defined the show but poisoned their relationship. Set stories tell of Carol storming off after Rob's suggestions, feeling his experience dismissed. All in the Family's impact endures, teaching tolerance through laughter. But the human cost, the egos clashing, reminds us stars are flawed. Carol's legacy as Archie is untouchable, yet his personal gripes with Rob add a layer of intrigue that keeps fans hooked. Digging deeper into this story, it's clear the bad blood between Carol O'Connor and Rob Reiner wasn't just some Hollywood rumor. It built up over years on the set of All in the Family, where their on-screen fights started bleeding into real life. Fans loved the sparks, but behind the scenes, it was no joke. Carol, with his World War II vet background and classical acting training, saw the show as serious art. He poured his soul into making Archie Bunker a flawed but human guy, not some cartoon bigot. Rob, fresh and full of fire from his dad's comedy world, wanted to amp up the politics, making Meathead a mouthpiece for change. Their clashes kicked off early in rehearsals. Carol liked structure and precision, while Rob would jump in with ideas, sometimes talking over everyone. One crew member remembered Carol rolling his eyes, muttering that Rob acted like he owned the place. Ideologically, they butted heads hard. Both were liberals at heart, but Carol wanted subtlety in Archie's growth, showing how prejudice could soften over time. Rob pushed for bolder lines, calling out issues like war and racism straight up. This turned script sessions into debates, leaving Carol feeling like his vision got hijacked. A big turning point hit when Rob did an interview back in the day, labeling Archie as dangerous and warning folks not to empathize too much. Carol took that like a gut punch, seeing it as a slam on his work to make the character relatable. He believed Archie was a mirror for America's struggles, not just a villain to hate. After that, trust shattered. Carol started keeping his distance, focusing on his lines and avoiding chit-chat with Rob. Set insiders said the air got thick whenever they were in the same room, with Carol snapping if Rob suggested changes to scenes. As the show blew up, Rob's star kept rising, but Carol felt sidelined. Rob would gush about Norman Lear in interviews, but barely mention Carol's role in making the magic happen. At award shows, Rob thanked everyone under the sun except the guy who shared the screen with him week after week. Carol's resentment simmered quietly. He never blasted Rob publicly, but in private chats with friends, he'd vent about the lack of respect. One pal recalled Carol saying Rob treated him like a prop, not a partner who helped launch his career. When Rob left after season 8 to chase directing dreams, the silence spoke volumes. No goodbye calls, no check-ins over the years. Carol watched Rob hit it big with movies like When Harry Met Sally, feeling like his contributions got erased from the story. In rare interviews, Carol dropped hints. He'd praise the cast but skip Rob's name, or call him that young fellow with a edge in his voice. Fans picked up on it, but without hard proof, it stayed as whispers. Personal lives added fuel to the fire. Carol dealt with heartbreak when his son Hugh battled addiction and took his own life in 1995. He turned that pain into advocacy, fighting for drug awareness. Rob's family faced similar shadows with his son Nick's struggles, but Carol saw Rob as too wrapped up in fame to handle it right. Fast forward to 2025, and the world got rocked when Rob and his wife Michelle were found dead in their LA home. Stabbed multiple times, homicide by knife, the news hit like a bomb. Their son Nick ended up in court, charged with the killings, turning a family tragedy into a nightmare. In the aftermath, old documents surfaced from Carol's estate. Journals, letters, even unsent notes where he poured out his disdain for Rob. One entry read, "Rob's ego will be his undoing. He steps on people without a second thought." Media went wild, linking the feud to these revelations. Podcasts dissected how Carol predicted Rob's downfall, tying it to neglect and arrogance. Insiders came forward with stories of Carol warning folks about Rob's ways, saying it poisoned everything around him. The exposure came full circle with a 2025 documentary on All in the Family.